Good morning. We all are blessed. We're here today. We're in Dubai, the beautiful, beautiful area of Dubai, and we're here. So I am so excited to be part of this panel, and I want to thank Education 2.0 for allowing us today. But I am certainly fortunate and blessed to be present today with this beautiful, beautiful panel, and we have some really, really great information to share with our community. So I am going to start with explaining or talking about, we're talking about the village model today. And one of the things that I want us, first of all, the previous panel and our previous keynote speakers, thank you so much, because it's certainly aligned to the work that we're going to talk about today. It definitely takes a village. And I do have an essential question. So those of you who are educators who have an essential question, I want you to take a second, because this is going to be interactive as well. We don't want to just sit up here and present. We want to engage. So I want you to take a second. I want you to turn to your partner, and I want you to ask in your native language, or if you speak multiple languages, whichever language is comfortable for you, I want you to ask your neighbor, how are the children? 10 seconds, go. Find someone, or you can ask us, how are the children? Can we hear everyone? Okay, have you asked your question? So regardless of what language you ask that question, communities can gauge the health of a community by asking, how are the children? If they're thriving, that's well. If they're not, if they're struggling, then we have a responsibility as the adults to really support our students and to support our children. Would you not agree? If the children are not doing well, is our community doing well? Absolutely not. So I have the privilege again of working together today and on this panel with some beautiful, beautiful women. Miss Mona Abdul Rahim Santal. Almost. I'm working on it. Miss Ebony Sang and Dr. Huda Garib.
Well done on the pronunciation.
Okay, I'm trying. I'm doing very good. So one of the things I want us to talk about, we're going to do a quick rapid fire, and I have a question for our panel. To ground our conversation, we'll begin with a rapid fire round so we can hear how the village model applies in our own context. And so my question to the panel is, what does the village model of education mean in your cultural or national context? So we'll start with you, Ms. Abdul Rahim.
Okay, so just
You can introduce yourself and then
Mona Abdul Rahim Santal, and I want to start with something else, because I have lived in several countries. I was born in Lebanon, lived in Germany, studied in Germany, went to Finland, went to Saudi Arabia, and lived in the UAE quite a bit. And I have numerous certifications, etc., schools in different countries. But one thing that I always say when I do trainings is everything I learned and everything that I will be sharing today is not from any university, from any course, from any school, but it's really from moving around, from the people, from communities, from understanding different cultures, and understanding basically that there is no right or wrong, but we understand from each person something else, and we learn. We learn from the people that we live with. We learn from the people who who impact us in a certain way. So this is what I take into trainings. My company is called Mind Your Power, and it's all about the power that we have when we're born. I believe that children are born with the potential of doing anything they can. And then, and here's where my background comes in, I'm a psychologist but also a hypnotherapist. I believe that parents are actually hypnotizing their children into believing that they are not good enough or afraid or something like that. So it's really, Mind Your Power is about training. We do mainly corporate training, actually. However, I have a special program for parents called Hypno-Parenting, which is just an educational program teaching parents emotional intelligence, basically, yeah? Not to focus on just the academics, but on life. because success is not about having an A in school, but it's about managing life and yourself. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Dr. Gari.
So, hi, good morning, everyone. So yes, you know what? I think it's. So let's start with a basic intro, and then get to the question. Yeah. Okay. So just a little heads up on what Imagine does. We've been involved in the startup sector for about almost 7.5, 8 years now. The whole idea behind Imagine is very simple and very straightforward. Our belief is that we want to actually be able to play our role in helping to bridge the gap between the skills of tomorrow and the education of today. Because like as our previous keynote said, as our previous panel also mentioned, that the void, the discrepancy has really increased ever since education has become formalized, has become more institutionalized. We see education no longer happening in a community or in a village sector where everyone actually played their role. For, you had, be it a homemaker, be it a breadwinner, whatever the role it was, or even your neighbors or friends, they all had a role to play in your overall holistic development, from discipline to your subject matter experts per se, to social skills, and so on and so forth, right? But unfortunately, ever since education has become more formalized, we've seen it become more in silos per se, where we each as parents believe that the primary authority on a student's education is the school. That's it. Once a child is out of there, it's over, finito. And that is where Imagine comes in. We've created our mantra simply on the belief that we enable each of us to dare to imagine. And we want you to be able to do the same, because let your creativity out there, let your innovation out there, let whatever passions you have. Again, when you let that go wild, of course you're creating absolute chaos. But when you can actually work with that and channelize that with your mentors, again, per se, subject matter experts, you can create the unprecedented stuff. Whoever thought Thomas Edison was going to come with a light bulb and we're going to accept it so much, or every gadget that you and I use today. While I concur that AI has taken a large part of it and is leading our lives heavily, and we all know that we've probably become lazier than anything, and as educators, we all understand the conflict that arises, between trying to bring that pragmatic form of education and at the same time, dealing with the way AI is now dominating. So we believe in pragmatic and holistic education. We believe, as our previous speaker also said, start in the formative years. So we start with students from 4.5. We go till students age on 16. We believe more in the principles of design thinking. So we take things up from there. And we've also recently, Mona, by the way, started in corporate trainings. So on conflict resolution, team building. Again, these are some of the KPIs we want to instill, and principles we want to instill in our younger students: discipline, team building, a little bit of AI, obviously, resource management. So how we take it from there. And that's a little bit about me and a little bit about what Imagine does. And honestly, dedicated my career to it so far. I've been very lucky to be part of the education sector, and very lucky to learn so much from you guys today over the last 3 days.
Thank you. Ms. Ebony.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Anthony, and I'm from Hong Kong. I'm an educator in social entrepreneurship. Over the years, I actually have educated over 80,000 of students towards a young social change maker, and have trained thousands of teachers and school principals into futuristic, social-minded educators through some user-centric pedagogies and different kinds of entrepreneurship programs. When we talk about the village models of education in Hong Kong, it's actually not referring to any standardized stuff or not a government policy. And instead, it is a kind of a philosophical approaches, and it's defining by our geographical history. With our geographical history and the fragmented landscapes in Hong Kong, Hong Kong has 7 million of populations, and we are administratively divided into 18 administrative districts, and where the populations can be from 700,000 in one district and 160,000 in another district. And within these districts, the surface area, population density, public services, economic activity, and natural areas can be totally different. So in this case, this means that the concept of village in Hong Kong is very fluent and is context dependent. Therefore, the reality is making some standardized curriculum, and maybe for the community engagement is almost impossible. Hong Kong has over thousands of schools and institutions where every school have to tailor their own concept and own curriculum of village models. So in order to fit within their immediate neighborhood and the needs of their students. So, but actually, I think in this case, it is where the innovations in education truly begins. So later on this session, I will share more my experiential examples of how we leverage and how we embrace our unique geographical issues in Hong Kong as a catalyst for innovations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And my name, again, is Jamila Hood Kirk, and I am actually serving in my 30th year in education. I have served as a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal for 14 years, and now an executive director. And for the village model concept, I am a product of the village model, and I essentially believe that the village model is learning beyond the classroom. It's when there's a shared responsibility from the community in which we live. I was that child that not only benefited from my family's teachings and community, but the community in which I served, whether it be in the neighborhoods, whether it be with aunts and uncles who were by blood relative, or those who were adopted as aunts and uncles because my parents were in a circle where there were shared beliefs about what community it was and how we were uplifting our children in those communities. In my current school district, there's about approximately 52,000 students. We have over 70 languages. So we have a very diverse community in our school district. And one of the things that we are really, really proud of is the fact that we leverage the community, business partners, faith-based organizations, community members, grandparents, all of those individuals, because we are in a school district, for example, that are maybe underrepresented students or have a high poverty rate. And oftentimes those students need mentors or individuals or adults in their lives that really need to really cultivate and help them. And they want to be able to see individuals who look like them. So the reality is not all of our children have those individuals in their lives. And so we're very intentional about creating a village model where our students are thriving. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And so we want to make sure that we have enough time, and that's a little bit about me, and we'll all go through some point in our conversations to share a little bit more. But I do have a question. I think this first question is for you, Ebony. Now that we've grounded ourselves in the meeting, let's move from definition to action. So my question for you, Ebony, is can you share a hands-on or experiential learning project that succeeded because of community involvement, and explain what made that partnership effective?
Sure, thank you. Following my earlier points on the geographical uniqueness and the needs of customizations, and we think that a school you can think of a school located in an old urban area versus a school located in central business district. We already have to adopt different approaches of community engagement. And even two schools located in the same administration district, but maybe one surrounded by some public housing, and the other one is just next to a commercial shopping mall. And the geographical, the ecological, and the demographic status is already totally different. And I believe this situation is not only just happened in Hong Kong. Yeah. And referring to the characteristics of the village models is the fundamental focus on the child's whole person development within a specific community, prioritizing the social contributions and the resilience over just purely the academic results. We believe this context-specified learning is the most authentic way to cultivate our social change makers, especially when they are still in a student and still in child. We have schools that adopted their lesson time and have arranged cross-subjects arrangements by project and problem-based learning. And like arranging a 1 year, 24 sessions of community entrepreneurial program, and also integrating with some community issues like aging populations or even the SDGs stuff in the school program. And we collaborate with cross-sectors like partners to amplify the impact too. For example, we have collaborated with some social enterprise to bring some experiential learning to our students, like wearing specific specific gears for students to simulate the back pain, the knee pain, and the visual impair of a elderly. And this is the empathy stage of a problem solving in our Hong Kong. And also, we have some human libraries that can feature entrepreneurs and the founders who have shared their journeys and building students' capability of open mindset and collaborative leadership. And also, we have connected with different district councillors and corporates. We have schools that we have students that have actually found there is a majority of elderly that are suffering back pain and knee pain, which is from the estates near their school. These issues have motivated the students to hand-wrote a letter to a medical factory and asking for some relieving patch. And of course, the factory really gave the patch for the student, and they have gave 1,000 patch for the student for free. And the students have distributed these patches for the elderly and helped them to relieve their muscle pain. And you can see that this is actually the entire process moved from amplifying a pain point and creating prototypes, and how can we nurture students into the sense of purpose and the social contributions. And of course, access to financial support is from funders or from foundation is also very vital to ensure the impact and the sustainability of the curriculum. On the other hand, back to the geography, we also have some schools that adopted a 1.5 kilometer radius approach to their service learning. The school just literally pin their school location on the Google map, and they draw a 1.5 kilometer radius circle, and all curriculums and all service learnings of this school will take place inside this circle. And this is how Hong Kong this is the Hong Kong ways of referencing the international concept of 15 minutes cities. Yeah, but we just change into 1.5 kilometer. And this is how we bring the learning to the community, and it also makes the out of classroom concepts is being very critical. While arranging out of classroom activities in Hong Kong is technically compulsory in Hong Kong, but how we define and what the learning journey behind we want to design for our student, it is the key differentiator. And it is actually depends on the awareness and depends on the ability of the teachers and the school principal. So actually our missions extended beyond from students only. As an educators, we educate students is not enough. We also need to educate our school principals, our teachers, and our parents. The education is the tool that can operate in like three community dimensions. The first one is curriculum to take place in the community. The second is developing solutions that creating tangible social impact to the community. The third one is making school not just existing or not just entering the community, but it is part of the community. So by embracing this into of the community approach, we think that we can ensure every student and whatever the school location is, they are not prepared for just academic results or not just for examinations, but it is how they can be ethical or they can be collaborative and a contributing citizens to the world.
Thank you, Ebony. Dr. Garib, as powerful as community-based learning can be, building and sustaining those connections isn't always easy. So my question to you is, what challenges do schools in your area face in building strong community connections, particularly around equity and access, and how do you work through those challenges?
I mean, what you said, I concur. Building and maintaining those relationships is never easy. And like Ebony also said, and you also said, we're all, the village model is something that's not alien to us. And in South Asian cultures and more Middle Eastern cultures, it's still very prominently there. Unfortunately, when it comes to my part of the world, we don't spend that much on education. Education is not mandatory per se at any level. Yes, the levels of education are increasing over the last few years, especially ever since COVID hit and beyond. But unfortunately, online schooling and everything did, obviously, like it's had its impact all over. That community, that essence of community building sort of like died out in the process because COVID, as it has got us separated. Then we kind of started building up more on the very focal point of, formalized educations. Unfortunately, those relationships just started fading away a bit. Yet, it's not, as I said, not alien to us. It's something at our very core in our culture. It's embedded in us, per se. And we are trying to work on it, and there are a lot of collaborations. That's where we work. That's the best possible way to do it. After all, what is the purpose of community-based education, right? It is for holistic growth, community growth, where we grow as, citizens to not only, and now it's not only citizenship within your own community or within your own city. We're talking about global citizenship with the amount of migrations that happen, that everything that takes place. We want to go there and be ambassadors of our own country, but more important, as useful global citizens contributing to the economy wherever we are settling in. And I think when it comes to that, it is not easy. Obviously, we all have our differences to build in with. But again, this is where when we talk about collaborations, when you talk about teamwork development, and this is why I think Imagine was one of those organizations that struggled a reasonable amount, especially during COVID, because for us it's all hands-on, it's all pragmatic learning, it's all teamwork, it's all communicating, and even when we're working with be it any of our STEAM programs, we don't focus on any one particular aspect. We pick up different elements. Where again, this is something. It's my true inspiration, to be honest, focusing on the community, building on that development, getting everyone in activities. And they don't have to be very high-tech or something that can cost very heavy on the pocket. Building prototypes, going green, building design plans, strategies together, something, again, that starts at your early years. We start at the root level, take that up, so that by the time the individual, and as it was mentioned earlier, right, we need to get our students into their professional lives at a younger age. We've seen all these organizations now recruiting these teenagers. We want them to be able to be equipped with those social skills to be able to actually sustain themselves. And unfortunately, in a country where we've got maybe 240 billion people or something like that, officially or unofficially, it's not easy. But we are kind of working. That is why always a pleasure to learn through global collaborations, to locally, and see what people have to offer. Best is always to listen, share your ideas, and try and find a middle ground, and that's where the community grows together.
Thank you so much. The reality is that when leaders work intentionally through those challenges, the impact on students can be great. One of the things that under our direction, our Clayton County Public Schools, under the direction of Dr. Anthony Smith, he has what he calls the no dead end. And we have the 4 E's: enroll, enlist, entrepreneur, and employment. One of the things that I really appreciate about the last 2 shares with our keynote and our previous panel, we talked about those pathways. And in our district, we really are intentional about ensuring that students understand the early age, from pre-K up to 12th grade, they understand that they have multiple pathways. Because the reality is, not all students will go to college. The reality is, for the enrollment, for example, yes, it may be a 4-year college, but there may be a technical college or certifications that our students can engage in, that can receive in our school district. Another thing could be enlist. We have students who may go into the military for various reasons. One reason might be to pay for college. Another is the entrepreneur. Our children have so much more exposure to everything just through social media. There's so many, even I have nieces who are business owners. And so really getting them in financial literacy and allowing them to learn how to be entrepreneurs, how to start up their own businesses. So we really cultivate that as well as employment. We want them to be viable. By partnering with those business partners and those industry leaders, we want students to see that there are opportunities out there. So partnering with our Delta Airlines or Atlanta Airport or Georgia Power, but most importantly for our children and for our scholars to see that there are individuals out there who look like us, because for many of them, they don't see themselves in those individuals who they may see on social media. So we're very intentional about bringing in individuals. A lot of the time, most of the time, they're into people who have come from that school district, and they come back and give back and show students another pathway. And so we want to make sure that we are really cultivating, getting students to understand that there are multiple pathways, and it doesn't have to start in college. Those soft skills and those hard skills we talked about, it starts in school. So that's one of the reasons, for example, why we've started now even with executive functioning skills, really teaching our children. But the reality is our teachers need that training as well. So it's not just something that we get from the outside, it's something that we also cultivate within our district. But It also goes back to career wellness awareness as well, starting in elementary, and then also looking at that visualization in middle school and then the preparation in high school. So the village model is not just about what we can do inside of our schools, it's what we can do outside of the four walls of our schools as well, even in providing that support to families. Because when we are providing support in job employment and opportunities to our parents, we're empowering our students as well. So we want to make sure that we are doing those as well. So those are some things that can be offered when you're thinking about leadership. And the challenge that I would challenge all of us is to go back into our communities and to identify how are we leveraging community members to really support our children, to really cultivate a true village model. Many of you probably grew up in a village model. I know it's more challenging these days because there's a factor of trust and not everyone shares those same values, but we have to be intentional. Some of us, as I'm sure if you're parents in here, you're very intentional with your own children. But again, not everyone has that opportunity and has that access. So how do we create equity and access for our children? And so I have another question as we are going into that. Beyond academics and across the village model also speaks to how children experience learning emotionally and psychologically. So, Ms. Mona, you work extensively with subconscious learning and emotional development through your hypnosis rise and hypno-parenting models. From a psychological perspective, why does the village model work, and what does it activate in a child that traditional schooling may not? My sister and I have a sister who's a psychiatrist, and we have a lot of conversations around this, so I'm really, really interested to hear what you're saying.
Yeah, so the village model actually addresses exactly that, right? So education is not about 2 + 2 is 4 or getting the right spelling. It's way beyond that, and that's where that psychology aspect comes in. So I'd like you, all of you, for a moment, just close your eyes for a moment, and just go back to your childhood, and just imagine someone who impacted you in your childhood, who taught you something. Just go back to that one moment, to that one person, beyond your parents, maybe not your parents. And think about how you felt, and think about what you learned. Okay, so just open your eyes again and come back. Maybe it was nice there, but still come back here. Anyone who would like to share, what is it, what feelings did you have, or what actually qualities did you learn from that person? Where I'm getting at is that most of the time what we learn is beyond what we consciously learn. So it's about maybe someone impacting you with a feeling of trust, or maybe courage, or maybe just curiosity, or maybe feeling safe. And these values we learn at a very, very young age. And these values we learn in the village model and not in school. Yeah? So you were saying earlier, Jamila, that, yeah, it's not about college, it doesn't start there, but it starts in school. Where it starts way before school, and it starts at that very young age, where we are taught to be maybe patient or curious or all of these values. And the thing is that our parents alone will teach us one side of the story. Parents often are affected by the social environment, by other parents, etc. We're often focused on results as parents. We want the best for our children, we want them to succeed in life, and therefore we want them to get straight A's. And what do we do when they have a D? Right? We focus on that D. But it's not about that A or that D. It's about really understanding them. And where the village model comes in is that every single person in a family or in a village, neighbors, friends, etc., can teach that child something different. And here's what, when I said at the beginning, for me, one key element in life is there is no right or wrong. It's not if I get my exams right in school that I'm okay and I'm successful, but because maybe I can learn another aspect, another perspective of things. And when I'm sitting with my grandmother, I might learn the sense of belonging or warmth. And when I'm sitting or speaking to a mailman. I don't know if we still have that here, not so much in Dubai, but in other parts of the world. Maybe I learn about accuracy or commitment, things like that. So we learn different things from different people. Now, the thing is, it starts at a very young age. In the program that I've developed, that we work with, hypnoparenting, it's really about teaching the village, the parents, the people who are in fact influencing the children, about how are you influencing them. I'll give you one example. I do a lot of corporate trainings. We have a lot of trainings around problem-solving skills. That's what companies nowadays want. Well, why is that a child needs, or an adult needs, problem-solving skills at the age of when he's already at work? Let's go back to when we are children. What do we often do as parents? We want them to be fast. Yeah? They start something and a parent would say, no, let me do it for you, or let me help you, or no, do it this way, or that's the better way to do it. We are in a rush. We're always in a rush. We always want to go faster and faster, so we do it for them. Now, the intention is a good one because a parent wants to help their child. But what that child is actually subconsciously learning is, ooh, I can't do it alone. I need someone to help me. So these problem-solving skills and abilities are not learned. And in the previous panel, someone talked about hard skills and soft skills. And she said soft skills are actually the harder ones to learn. And that's why. Because we never learn them. Yeah? So again, a parent can be focused on speed, on, we need to get going, but then the neighbors, the grandparents, the siblings, etc., can maybe get a different perspective and teach that child, you know what, try it yourself. Let's have a little bit of patience. Yeah? So for me, the village model starts at a very, very young age. It is not when we go to school, but it's about teaching subconsciously and not consciously. We are driven by our subconscious mind, and that's the mind of emotions. And when I asked you earlier to just think of a moment, of a teaching moment in your lives, what we remember is not the, 5 times 5. It's the emotion that is instilled in us. It's that value. And emotions are not conscious. We are driven by our subconscious, and the subconscious is about 95% of our day, of our life. We think we're human beings that need a brain. We do have a brain, and we do think with a brain, and we do, hopefully everybody use a brain, right? But the thing is, especially when we are in that world of change and rapid change, and when we are in stressful situation, it's our subconscious that takes over. And there we have, what did we learn? What values do we have? How do we actually function? And this can be instilled when we learn at a very young age from different people.
Very good. Thank you so much. And I was going to actually share, since no one else did share, and there were so many people that were influential, like you said, outside of my parents, whether it be the aunts or uncles who weren't true blood, but they were best friends of my parents, or my great-grandmother who was 99, but taught me that sense of belonging and how to take care of others, and probably was one of the reasons, as well as an aunt, why I went into education and why I love children, but taught me how to cook, taught me how to sew, taught me how to take care of my siblings, and to this day, I feel like I carry on that spirit of her, even though she's no longer here on earth, but subconsciously, I know that I have her with me, and so I still carry on some of those things that she taught me. So I think that is powerful, and I think the challenge sometimes for educators particularly is, how do you evoke that emotion in classrooms, right? How do you continue that? And for many parents, there's a disconnect. There's a gap between the parents and even their grandparents, and so there's a disconnect between, keeping that feeling of emotion and going back. It's one of those things where I learned when you want to manifest, you have to attach the emotion to it as if it's already happened. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. So how do you face that? How do you address that challenge?
Well, we do also a lot of trainings in school,
Okay.
but I am seeing a big difference. I'm seeing a huge, huge difference to the school system as it was,
Yes.
I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or when I was a kid. That's a little bit longer than that.
Yes.
Or now when my children went to school and I see one example is we used to just study, learn by heart,
Yep. Memorization,
and just memorize and recite. The thing is that at that time it was everybody works on their own. If I look at my neighbor, I'm cheating, right? So we didn't learn what we actually need for business and for work. Nowadays, if you go to work, it's all about collaboration. It's all about teamwork. It's not about everyone working alone. And what I saw when my children were maybe in high school already, that changed. And I think that emotional aspect is coming in more because the school systems today are encouraging whatever it is, teamwork, or giving feedback, or presentation skills, everything that we need. And that encourages people to work together, to use actually these soft skills that we then later on use or need for work.
Very good. Okay, so it's your turn now. So as we prepare to close, we want to shift from reflection to action and hear directly from you. So if there's any questions in the audience, or if you would like to share one action educators, families, or community members can take tomorrow to bring the Village Model to life, if you would like to share that, we open the floor to the audience. And there's a microphone right here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm so lucky to join this conversation because it's just lucky to hear someone who knows about a lot of psychological aspects concerning education. But I would like to share a case that because I struggled a lot. Sorry, this is Dr. Mary from Hong Kong. Yes, sorry about that. Yes, and one thing is because I've been teaching for so many years, more than 20, and that's the thing that, I do believe that our parents all know, in Hong Kong especially, they all receive well education. So then probably all know the problems, but that one thing is the society is like this. And there's one parent, she told me that she knows everything. And at the end of the day, she let the kid, live his life. She wants him to be happy, let him make decision and do whatever. And at the end of the day, she doesn't want to compare, but she has to do interviews. And then the kid has to attend all those kindergarten interviews and stuff. And eventually, he really is not able to get into a very decent school, not even a regular school, okay? And that's the thing that, luckily that parent is wealthy enough, she moved to Australia, and then because of families over there. So I think that's the thing is I think we have all the ideal situation, all the solutions and stuff, but once come to the reality, there are a lot of countries in Asia, we face a lot of problems in here. We all know the things, we all know that if we do this, they may be psychological, they will be better and this and that. But how to solve the problem? I struggle a lot from my ears. How I just keep on comforting my parents and try to in my curriculum, try to make the kids happy, during learning, but not every subject can be like that. So, especially Chinese, you have to recite it. There's no shortcut. If Mandarin is still better because they can do the pinyin, same like phonics. They can do the blending and stuff. But Cantonese is really something like the Chinese words. You can't, except for reciting the symbols, and you can't have a shortcut. So then I'm thinking, is there any solution in the future, or now there are solutions, psychologically or anywhere, that can solve the problem? Yes, thank you very much.
I'd really like to add to what you said, and I get what you're going. I mean, you can't make everyone happy. No one ever can, right? Or nothing ever can. But, so I started off my teaching career about, I can't remember, nearly 2 decades ago. But I started in a school where, coincidentally, it's the school where I started my education. I was there from primary school to my O-levels. And, even though I completed high school there, and then I somehow karma came full circle perhaps, and I ended up working there again. I spent about nearly 4 years working there, and I realized the change, irrespective. I mean, it's one of those more progressive schools back home in Pakistan, it's one of the top schools in Karachi. And you realize that irrespective, the school heads and the school directors, they have some of the amazing teachers out there as well. They're all trying to get students on board. They're trying to get them into these extracurricular activities. And as everyone's been discussing, we're focused on the soft skills. But at the end of the day, irrespective, schools are globally, or at least back in Pakistan largely, stuck with a certain education board that they have to, these exams that this child has to clear by the end of high school. So you're stuck in that conflict. And that is one reason why I chose to separate and, sort of start on my own. So I kind of get where you're going from, because you don't want to be stuck within those boundaries. You don't want to be stuck within that framework. And when we say dare to imagine, we really realize something like what you mentioned about that the parent let that child live his or her life. We want to be able to obviously keep them within certain SOPs, but not within the SOPs of obviously the school limitations, which every school has to have because they need to fulfill their requirements. But it is understandable, and my only solution to that is something a lot of my mentors and a lot of my friends have told me as well, is that the best possible way is, you focus on the overall holistic development and the more pragmatic approach towards life which you are taking, but you cannot, unfortunately, shift a student away from the formative education that they have to take, the primary education. And that is why and I'm sure, Jamila, you being a principal and your vice principal years must have figured out that you, as progressive as you may be, and as much as you might be inspired from the village model as well, because that's where our roots are, it's very difficult for school heads also to meet with people like me, because you want to embed our programs in your curriculum, but you have that parental pressure, you have that mindset pressure, and in South Asian countries like ours, it does become more of a problem. So yes, it's quite a conundrum, it's quite a mental conflict as well, but you have to somehow just be in discussions and try and find that middle ground possible.
Thank you. Yes. And there's a microphone right here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So my name is Obed Hardy. I'm working with Miss Mona Abdulrahim Santel. I met her earlier this year, and she's been so wonderful. I'm an educator myself the last 1.5 decades, but the meeting her brought me some different perspective on my practice, right?
Okay.
I have it's not kind of a question per se, but looking at the dynamics and the evolution of things around us today, not only in education, but looking at AI, looking at tech and all of that. From where I'm coming from, I'm Ghanaian originally, and I grew up from the village as well. Look, until 10 years, I couldn't read ABC or count 1, 2, 3 because I literally wasn't going to school. I was living with my grandma in the village somewhere. But when I moved to be with my dad, in less than a year, I was representing the district in quizzes. And I've seen how this man, not even from the school, because today kids have like phonics. I've taught phonics in China and all of that. I didn't have that, 10 years. But my dad every night would make sure I spent at least 2 hours or something. I was reading books. I read 1 book every night, and it changed the paradigm. So the point I'm trying to make here is, how do we reconcile all these discussions we are having on village models? How do we reconcile it with the evolution of technology? And how do we also ensure the issue of ethics and morality whilst we are exposing the children, because we are mentioning so many stakeholders? How do we ensure to foster the issue of ethics and morality while we expose our young students to all of these different people in our communities in the modern 21st century environment? Thank you.
Someone want to take that?
Mona, you?
Well, I'll take it then. First of all, thank you, Obed. And thank you also for sharing, because, and this is an example of, we don't have to start learning to read and write at a very young age. But if we have the other values that we learn, we can always learn these skills. Now, I want to go back to that point of AI and everything, because the world is changing very fast. And education can almost not keep up with the change that is happening. And oftentimes again, I'm going back to parents now because I'm taking the village model and not so much to educators, but parents they want to help their children and say, okay, I'll tell you how it is because I know, because I've gone through what you're going through now. But the thing is that we as parents have no idea how it is to be a child today. We need to evolve, and when it comes to AI, for example, children growing up today, they will learn different things and they will learn differently, and they will maybe even learn from one another more than from educators or parents. So again, it's the village model in a sense of a social model, children learning from one another instead of learning from people who are older than them, because trust me, we cannot teach them. They can teach us or teach one another.
And I also think that there was a conversation held yesterday about the morality and technology is evolving. But I think it's also, we have to be very intentional, whether it's in school or in our homes, to really make sure that children understand the ethical part. There has to be a balance. There's still humanity, right? So even as we're evolving and AI is here, there has to be a reminder of the humanity that should undergird all of that technology. Otherwise, we'll be in a world where we can kind of see that kind of peeping through right now, where people are not responsibly using AI. If you go on social media, sometimes you don't know how many of you have gotten hacked on your social media, or you see someone on social media and it's not really them. People are using their likeness or other people's likeness. And that's a morality issue. That's not really understanding that there's humanity, right? Just understanding that as human beings, we still have to do what's responsible. And so we can't take that by chance, and we can't assume that students or children or even adults will learn that through osmosis, just because we should. And so there has to be many conversations. It should be embedded in our curriculum. There should be policy around it. If you don't have that in your schools or in your organizations, policy around ethically how we should responsibly use that. We've done that work in our district. And we didn't just put that out. We had parents, students, teachers, administrators around the table to say, okay, what is our reality? And how are we going to address this? Because we can't just assume people are going to use it responsibly just because it's there. And so I think that is still a responsibility of ourselves, even as educators, to make sure that's actually happening. But thank you for that share.
If I could just add, it depends which part of the world you're in, but these moral values and ethics and what we're talking about, in some countries like here, we can see a lot of family bond and people sitting together. And maybe that's one value that I value a lot here in this part of the world. And where automatically, when families sit together, Pakistan is the same, Hong Kong, where we have 3 or 4 generations that can learn from one another. I personally have brought my mother from Germany 2 years ago. She lives with me. She's 91 now. I have my children, and I am going to be a grandma soon. So we will have 4 generations living basically very close with one another. And the thing is that my children love sitting with their grandmother and hearing stories from before. And it's even the way we communicate with elderlies that is different, because we sit there, we have a cup of tea, we speak differently than when we go onto social media and speak with our friends, right? And then when we have small children, again, we act differently. So it is a kind of a village model in a family, also a family model, where we can really learn from generations.
Absolutely. And then going back to my great-grandmother, that was one of the things, all of our grandparents, that we learned, and even I carry on to today, even with my father, who is very intentional. When we come together, we celebrate Kwanzaa, for example, every December, and one of the things we talk about is those 7 principles that we carry throughout the year. It's not just the one time of year. And anytime our family gets, we're singing, we're sharing stories, and we're learning things about our grandparents so that we can carry that on from generations to generations, because the reality is that some of our children don't get to experience their grandparents. And so then how do we carry that on? So thank you for bringing that forward and reminding us about that. Are there any more questions? I know we're out of time. Yes, please come forward.
So I think it's quite an interesting conversation and quite a lot of takeaway, I can say, from my perspective. One point which is coming up since yesterday I'm hearing, that we have to change the education system. And we see all the people who are coming on the dais are having an experience of 2 decades, even 1 decade, so I'm not guessing their age. And they're fantastic people. So I think we had a good education. Why you want to change everything? But I love the point which you said, the village concept and all that stuff. It's always there in the Asian countries. We said, kid is not being brought up by an individual or a family. It is brought up by the village. I think we're missing that as a bigger point than anything else. The social connect is getting lost in a transit. Education, I strongly believe that all the people on the dais are fantastic and had a 2 decade of education from the same system which we are trying to change. Why should we change it? Not only the social point we need to focus on. Any person?
Sir, can I know your name?
Definitely.
Your name?
Rajiv Hira.
Rajiv, sorry. Rajiv, I concur with you. There is, I think, I'm going to make a very bold statement. I think everyone does agree with you very much. So we are not stating, I think no one is blatantly stating we need to change the education system. We are saying we need to adapt. I mean, as everyone, I think there was a panel yesterday on the IoT, on how tech is rapidly growing and increasing. And you realize that, and even when we talk about social media, that has infiltrated our minds, forget our kids, and when we talk about Vision 2030, and we're getting it everywhere. The whole idea is that tech and social media is taking out a large part of our lives. We need to be able to understand that. We need to be able to adapt. While our grandparents or great-grandparents, forget them, I'm talking about our parents. They probably haven't even, they aren't as tech savvy as we are. Like, there are times my mom still tells me, my phone's asking for an update. What do I do? It's like, Mom, it's a Samsung update. It's okay, go for it. For us, it's so like common sense. It's just, you got to do it. Yet our parents have those reservations. The people are resistant to change. We don't. So we are not saying I don't think that change model, which all those theorists have come up with, HR and all, yes, they've got their own perspectives, and doing it in myopic perspective might be fine. But on a large scale, I personally feel, and it has to be more about adaptability.
So just add up one more point. So AI we are talking about, to be honest, we all adults are now nervous. The teenagers have much more knowledge on the AI.
Not the teenagers, the 5-6-year-olds.
Even, exactly. So I'm saying they should be on the dais to tell us how the AI should work in. Oh, we all are just talking. We don't know the nits and gritties of what and how these things are going to work on. To be honest, I strongly believe if you want to learn about AI, talk to a teenager, maybe younger guys also. So I think that's where there is a lot of nervousness with the adults, and they want to change, which we are in an age where even our elders have dominated us, and our youngers are dominating us. So that's where the framework is coming. I strongly believe the education system is fantastic. There are learning mechanisms we need to learn. It's not everything has to be emotional based. Yes, definitely has to be. But I'm from a tax perspective. I'm from an accounting perspective. I'm from a law perspective. You need to grab some things. But yes, you need to look at how you adopt those points. Empathy has to be there. But there is no shortcut of getting into not grasping multiple things also. So I think it's a good combination. We are at the cusp of a lot of things which are working in. Fantastic, and hats off to the communication or the conversation which had. It's amazing, and looking at, I'm sure, not a change in education system, but maybe aligning it to the changing world where social system is breaking out.
Can I just suggest change the word change?
Yeah.
To evolve or adapt or enhance or whatever.
Definitely.
Language matters.
So I think the word plays is definitely important, and it is creating a lot of, I'll say, confusion at the learning space also. But I think the adoption is the right word. I adopt that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, or are we done?
So as we come to an end of our time together, I want us to return to the question we began with. What was the question at the beginning? Who remembers? What question should we be asking? How are our children? Okay? So as we close, we want you all to remember that all of our insights for today about partnership, equity, belonging, and psychological safety help us answer that question more honestly. And they remind us that children are learning for life, not for school, and that their well-being reflects the strength of the villages we build around them. So again, how are our children? It takes a village. Thank you.
Thank you.